So 20 years in the luxury car dealership business.
Yes.
What was your favourite quote?
I always say to people, making a lot of money was the most expensive thing I ever did.
Want to say that again?
Making a lot of money was the most expensive thing I ever did.
It's an amazing quote, isn't it? And don't you sort of think about that one? So what happened for you after 20 years and, obviously a very successful money-making career, which you obviously must have enjoyed? Where was the change around for you? Because Paul now has, he's the founder of Temple Byron in Byron Bay, amazing place, amazing astrologer. So from, a guy that was very left brain in the, I'm not saying anything wrong with materialism, I don't mean that, but a very left brain material lifestyle to a very right brain lifestyle of service. What was the change for you? Well,
I had some major events happen in my life around 10 years ago after being in the motor trade for 20 odd years. While I was in the motor trade, I was also playing flamenco guitar in a flamenco show every weekend and doing the car thing during the week. And I just go to work like a robot. Go to breakfast every morning, go to work, do the same thing, selling expensive motor cars to wealthy people, and it was basically material based and very egotistical and feeding people's egos. It was great, it was exciting, it was a great business, but there was always a feeling of something missing. Similar to what Louise was talking in the beginning, there was something missing. There was no contribution being made, as if I had some sort of ability that I wasn't using. So I had some radical things happen to me in a period of 1 week. Some major things happened in a short amount of time, and the universe gave me some clear messages of what I was meant to do and what I'm certainly not meant to do, and that's how it started. I didn't have much choice.
It was a big message, huh?
It was a big message.
In fact,
well, yeah, I was brought to my knees, literally. I was actually crippled, so yeah, it's not a matter of not listening. It was screaming at me.
Okay.
That's when it changed, yeah.
So an amazing journey, and as I say, one of your amazing gifts now is as an astrologer. So in having Paul here tonight, I'd like Paul to share with us kind of like where we're at the moment, because we know there's some really heavy-duty energies happening on our planet. We know that we're raising in consciousness. We know that a lot of things that aren't serving us are going out the window. Can you give us a sense of what's happening and why, and some hope for some people? Because I know some people are really being brought to their knees.
Absolutely. Look, I started studying astrology to actually find some answers to my own situation, my own life, but then I discovered it's an amazing, it's an ancient tool of understanding. Originally, we all used to follow the planets and plant our crops by the planets and the stars, and we sort of lost touch with that over the centuries. But globally, collectively speaking, with the astrological transits that are happening at the moment, for instance, there's one main one, the planet Pluto changing signs, going into the sign of Capricorn from Sagittarius. Now, Pluto in Capricorn happens once every 220 years. That's happened in the last, basically the last year and a half. That's been happening for us collectively.
So what's Pluto and what's Cap?
Okay, Capricorn basically rules business, amongst other things in astrology, and Pluto, of course, is the planet of total transformation. In ancient Vedic astrology, it's the snake that sheds its skin. In other words, the old skin dies off in order for the new life to be reborn. So it's the saying for Pluto is Phoenix rises from the ashes. So the last time we had Pluto in Capricorn, we had the Industrial Revolution.
Okay.
And of course, you can see what's happening now economically. It's there's a lot of similarities. The global economical world order is changing, and a lot of things are being accounted for. And Pluto in Capricorn was always foreseen as a time when there'll be radical changes to the business world. Not only the business world, but that's how it's basically started to manifest.
Okay, so how long is that transit going on for?
Well, Pluto will stay in Capricorn for 14 years. It'll be in Capricorn until 2023, but it's just gone in now.
Okay.
And when a planet changes signs, they always say that it's quite a powerful time. So you can see Pluto went into Capricorn, and straight away we've had some major adjustments worldwide. There are obviously other transits happening at the moment. This is a very powerful time. I've been studying astrology for a long, long time, and with what's coming up for all of us, and when I'm talking about not each person with their star signs, I'm talking about collectively and globally.
Yep.
There are transits happening in the sky now that are about real change. And Pluto going to Capricorn is one of them. Of course, the other one, the the planet Saturn is exactly opposite the planet Uranus. Well, Saturn represents the old,
Yep.
Uranus represents the new. They're in total opposition. The last time we had that was the middle 60s. The flower power, the hippie movement, the
Yep.
non-conformity, change.
Yep.
So-called age of Aquarius, when it all started heating up. And that's peaking at the moment. It will do for the next year or two, especially into next year. I think next year is going to be a powerful time with some of the alignments happening to all of us, a powerful time of change. And I think what's happening economically is only the beginning of it.
Okay, so what's been happening personally for people over the last, 6, 12, 18 months? Because
Yeah.
there's a lot of people going through a lot of stuff.
Exactly.
And
Well,
it's
look,
painful.
Every person, of course, has an individual birth chart. Really, no two charts are really the same. And the planets do affect us. I mean, it's common knowledge that when you get a full moon, any police station or any hospital will tell you on a full moon, that's their busiest time.
Yep.
The term lunatic comes from people getting a bit emotional when it's a full moon. When a woman has a menstrual cycle, fluid levels change, women become emotional. It's a scientific fact.
Yep.
Well, if we know that on full moon that we have a high tide, scientific fact. Well, if the moon can affect us emotionally, why wouldn't Jupiter? It's 100 times bigger than the moon. So all these planets do affect us. It's just that we don't tune into them these days. So at the moment, with the alignments that are happening in the sky at the moment, globally, there's a lot of pressure on people to become their authentic selves and to rise above a lot of the external battles and the battles of the ego, to get back into more into the heart, less into the mind. Because what a lot of us are doing, and not only through astrology, we're in such a hurry. This is so-called the time of the quickening. Mm-hmm. A lot of the old prophets, let alone even in the Bible, and a lot of the religious doctrines will tell you this is the time of the quickening. This is the time when things are speeding up. The Mayan calendar getting towards 2012, supposedly a time of the dawning of a new age of consciousness. On many different levels, people are feeling that things are changing. It's time to start being our real true selves and using our power and utilise our potential. And basically that's what the birth chart, the astrological chart, everyone has an individual chart, and it's about, that's the soul's journey, that's the potential for that soul in this lifetime. Now, of course, we're all totally responsible for the choices we make. So I tell people often when I'm doing a reading, I can tell you the potential of your journey over the next 1 or 2 decades. But you can not look where you're going when you're crossing the road and get hit by a bus, and you've got to come back and do it again because you made a bad choice not looking where you're going.
Yeah. So it always comes back to personal
Absolutely.
choice, doesn't it?
Nothing is set in stone.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people think that astrology, it's all a little bit witchy and it's all about prediction. Sure, there is prediction in terms of the time frames of what things can happen and how they can happen in what areas of your life. Sure, that can be very accurate, sometimes even pinpoint to the day. And I've experienced it personally many times. But overall, we're responsible for our own choices. So these transits are about getting people to wake up and to start to open the heart. Because the spiritual path is quite simple. It's about opening the heart and letting the mind become a tool of the heart.
So what would you be saying to people at the moment who are going through absolute pain in relationships or their career or whatever area it is,
Okay.
and it's really like dark night of the soul stuff? What would you be saying to them?
I'd be saying to have a good look at the things that are triggering you, because they're just, some people would say they're issues deep within yourself that you've disowned or you don't recognise. And so we find them mirrored to us in our partners and our people around us and life situations. Mm-hmm. And sometimes when you can look at everyone around you as being a teacher, then you start to realise we're all brothers and sisters and we're all learning from each other, and we're basically all on the same journey, maybe at different times, but we're all heading to the same place to get some sort of high level of awareness. Now, if you stay in the lower mind and you start to see people, you start to live with fear-based reaction rather than interact with life, you react to it, then you're going to have some pain. And if that's the choice you want to make, and that's the road you want to go down, well, that's where you'll end up.
Okay. Is this affecting, obviously it's affecting men as well as women, but are men having a more challenging time with this because stuff that they may have been holding down is really just... What's happening for men?
I think...
Because I'm hearing a lot of that happening out there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think that it's happening to all of us.
Yeah.
But, In astrology, men is represented more by the sun, women more by the moon. Women are more yin and men are more yang. That's, of course, the duality of life. Venus and Mars. Venus, the planet of love, and Mars was the ancient god of war, the yang principle. But I think a lot of men are a little bit out of touch with their feminine side. They're more ego-based, more competitive, more in the mind, where a lot of women seem to feel a bit more and use their intuition and their feelings a bit more. And I think that's why some men are having a little bit of a harder time, because they're not in touch with the deep part of them. That I mean, the mind screams and the heart whispers. And sometimes men,
Nice. Say that again.
The mind screams and the heart whispers. Now, if you can listen to the little voices inside you, there's your guidance, there's your spiritual guidance. Because after all, we're all basically old souls, and we've got a lot of intuition, a lot of inner guidance. Some people can speak about spirit and God, or whatever form you want to call it, whether it's up there or it's inside you, but there's definitely a message and you feel in your heart what's right and what's wrong. Now, whether we listen to those little messages, there's our guidance.
So tell me, before you kind of moved into astrology and all the rest of it, what was your belief system? Did you have one? Did you believe there was a higher power? Or
Look, I believed in God always, I still do, but I was trained, I went out of university, I did a law degree at university, an arts degree, and I was trained to go into business, and the setup was money talks and bullshit walks. Am I allowed to say that, Frank? Sorry.
you want to do it one more time?
Well, it was just about trying to be successful in the business world and have financial independence. And I mean, we're trained basically to compete and to have fear in a way not to. Well, I was anyway, and a lot of men are. I mean, let's face it, look, when a baby is born, a baby is fearless. A baby will grab a funnel web spider and put it in its mouth. It will go up and pat a wild animal. But sooner or later we get trained, whether it be through our family, our upbringing, our boyfriends, girlfriends, and life experience, we get trained to have an element of fear. And then you get to a point where sometimes you start to believe that the world can be a dangerous place. And we're basically then in a fear pattern and on guard. And part of the business world and the competition is a bit like that. Now, I'm not trying to knock business, because, gee, I honour totally the experience I've had, and it's helped me to see both sides of the fence. But my journey now really, and astrology is one of the tools I use, and one of the reasons I created the Healing Centre was just to bring the heart energy back in. And I think it's important that we all start to realise with what's happening in the world that we need to start getting together and realise we're all the same, and ditch all this separation.
Well, speaking of separation then, do you think sometimes people give up too quickly on relationships when there's this?
Totally, because you see, with relationships, a lot of people are just being mirrored. You can be, for instance, you can have I'm not married, but let's say, for instance, if I was married and I've had a fight with my wife, well, often my wife will be mirroring an emotion in me that I haven't really owned or really understood. And it's the universe just showing you, right to your face, what you need to integrate with. Now, it's not easy to do that, because you have to sort of drop the ego and you have to start to realise, well, maybe there's an element of that in me. And this person actually is one of my teachers. I mean, I had a fairly harsh upbringing, but I totally honour my parents because they were great teachers.
Why?
They taught me how not to be.
Can you share a little bit that's not too personal? Or?
Unfortunately, I sort of grew up in a little bit of an abusive, not a little bit, quite major abusive upbringing in family and childhood. And so I was indoctrinated and I was trained to compete and be successful and be fearful and even possibly be passive-aggressive and even obsessive at some point. And I've become brought to my knees and tamed since then. But they were great teachers. And I think your point of having relationships where people are giving up, if you give up, you'll just end up attracting the same situation in your life at another point, and it'll do it again, and you'll just keep coming back. And if you haven't learned in this lifetime, you'll probably come back the next lifetime and you'll have another go. And sooner or later, you've got to realise this, and we've got to just transcend all this stuff and start to bring a little bit of unity and a little bit of love and peace back into our every moment. Because after all, it's the only thing that's real. I mean, if you read all the Eckhart Tolle and all the books, The Power of Now, the only real the only real moment is, the real thing is just the right moment.
Yep.
If you use the pain of yesterday and the projection of fear onto tomorrow, you miss out on the only thing that's real.
Yep. It's a present
And at this
moment.
particular moment, all of us here,
Yep.
we're all here having a great time. That's the reality of your life. No one's here probably got any ultimately really pain or any major problems at this very moment. But we bring the fear in from yesterday, we project it onto tomorrow, and we ended up in a cycle, a pattern that we find it hard to get out of.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Paul, thank you so very much. Please
Pleasure,
thank
Robyn.
Paul.
Thank
He
you.
is another interesting human being, which we all are, in just sharing the learning from his own experience and where that journey is taking him.